The edge of the continent dissolves into mist, and beyond it, a peninsula of myth rises like a mirage between oceans. Kamchatka lies 11,000 kilometers east of Moscow and 9 time zones away, jutting into the Pacific where tectonic plates collide. Here, the world feels unfinished. The earth smokes and hisses, and ice clings to mountains that bleed fire. Everything is either raw or frozen, as if nature is testing its own limits. From above, the peninsula resembles a spine of white and black, a chain of volcanoes marching down its length. There are more than 300 volcanic peaks here, and at least 29 are alive. The largest, Kluchevskaya Sopka, towers to 4,050 meters and dominates the horizon with a perfect cone dusted in snow. To the east, Kronotsky volcano rises so symmetrical that it seems deliberately sculpted. Stratovolcanoes like Shiveluch explode with viscous lava domes. Karimsky, lower but restless, has been erupting almost continuously since the mid-1990s. On clear days, plumes from Shiveluch, Bezimiany, Kiziman and Drupanovsky can be seen rising simultaneously, their ash blown south by Pacific winds. It is here that the Pacific Ring of Fire arcs into the Arctic, making Kamchatka the most volcanic place on the Eurasian continent. Between the volcanoes, glaciers lie like frozen rivers, their creaking tongues reaching down into valleys carved by ice and lava. Fire and ice coexist in impossible intimacy. Hot springs steam beside meters-thick snow, and fumaroles melt pockets in glaciers from beneath. The interplay of heat and cold shapes a landscape of paradoxes. On the east coast, moist ocean air brings rain and snow, up to 2,500 millimeters a year, feeding heavily glaciated peninsulas where fog hangs in thin curtains, and permafrost retreats beneath a thick, insulating snowpack. Inland, the Kamchatka River Valley is drier and more continental. Summers reach a soft 19 degrees, while winter plunges to 41 degrees, and sporadic permafrost buckles the ground. Farther north, continuous permafrost grips the tundra, and the sun does little to thaw it. It is a subarctic climate tempered by warm currents and volcanic heat, yet capable of burying villages under meters of snow in a single week. Deep in the heart of Kamchatka lies a hidden canyon that appears from nowhere. The Valley of Geysers, carved by the Geysernaya River, is a 6-kilometer gash in the mountains, discovered by accident in 1941 and still accessible only by helicopter. Steam rises in plumes from the riverbanks, curling and twisting like spirits in the cold air. 20-plus geysers puncture the surface, and more than 200 hot springs seep and bubble. One geyser, Velikan, hurls a column of water 30 meters into the air before it collapses as a cloud that soars to 300 meters. Elsewhere, water boils quietly in turquoise pools, mud pots burble and spit, and fumaroles roar with invisible force. The entire canyon smells of sulfur and wet stone. Geysers erupt with their own rhythm, some every 10 minutes, some every 5 hours. Wooden boardwalks keep the few visitors from falling into scalding pools, not just for their safety, but because the soil and microflora are fragile. In June 2007, a mountainside collapsed, burying 2/3 of the valley under a torrent of mud, rock and snow. Within days, steam began to escape again, proof that the forces beneath were undiminished. This place is a rare witness to the way Earth continually remakes itself. There are other valleys here where the Earth's breath is deadly. At the foot of Kikpinich volcano lies the Valley of Death, a meadow no larger than a football field, where toxic gases collect and stay. Hydrogen sulfide and carbon dioxide hug the ground, invisible and dense. Birds flutter in, land, and never rise again. Foxes and wolverines wander in, intoxicated by curiosity, and succumb before they can turn around. Even brown bears have been found lying here, massive bodies stilled by invisible poison. There is no drama, no smoke or roar, just quiet and the smell of rot. A few meters upslope, life continues as if nothing happens below. It is a reminder that danger can be silent, that not all threats announce themselves with fire and ash. Life on Kamchatka thrives by exploiting the edges. Every summer, millions of Pacific salmon surge up the peninsula's rivers: Chinook, coho, chum, pink, sockeye, and the spotted sade. So many fish spawn here that 1/5 of all Pacific salmon begin life in these waters. When the salmon run, brown bears line the riverbanks, their massive shoulders hunched as they swat fish from foaming water. In the Kronotsky Nature Reserve alone, there are estimated to be 3 to 4 bears per 100 square kilometers. They gorge until their fur is slick with scales, then wade into meadows of wildflowers to sleep. Steller's sea eagles, half the world's population lives here, perch on twisted larches, eyes sharp for fish. Reindeer move across the tundra in small herds, breaking through snow to reach lichen. Arctic foxes flash white in winter and grey in summer, weaving through dwarf birch and willow. On the coast, sea otters float in kelp beds, paws clasped, while orcas and humpback whales cruise the bays. In winter, spotted seals, walruses and bearded seals haul out on pack ice, their breaths rising like smoke in the polar dawn. Humans have lived here for millennia on nature's terms. In the north, the Koryak people still herd reindeer across the tundra and set nets in salmon streams. Before slaughtering a reindeer, they speak to it and ask forgiveness, acknowledging a bond that predates memory. Farther south, the Itelmen gather berries and roots along riverbanks and weave fish nets from plant fibers. Russian explorers arrived in the 17th century by way of the sea, hindered by lack of ships and by the resistance of the indigenous Koryak. They built small forts and churches, but the land humbled them. There are no roads that connect Kamchatka to the rest of Russia. Moscow is over 6,700 kilometers away, and there are no railways. To this day, most of the peninsula can only be reached by helicopter, boat, or by foot, and large swaths of wilderness remain pathless. The elements here do not relent. In winter, storms blow in from the Sea of Okhotsk and bury Petropavlovsk-Kamchatsky, home to most of the peninsula's people, under meters of snow. In January 2026, more than 2 meters of snow fell in 2 weeks, following nearly 4 meters in December. Snowdrifts exceeded 2.5 meters and the regional capital ground to a standstill. Icicles hung like daggers from roofs, roads disappeared, avalanches threatened houses. The weight of the snow crushed cars and blocked doorways. Such events are not anomalies, but part of life on a peninsula where winds can switch from calm to hurricane in minutes. Even in more placid seasons, fog rolls in from the Pacific, swallowing whole landscapes and leaving only the nearest larch visible. The ground underfoot is as unpredictable as the sky. Kamchatka sits on the edge of the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench, where the Pacific Plate dives beneath the North American Plate. Megathrust earthquakes of magnitude 9 struck here in 1737 and 1952. More shallow earthquakes ripple across the peninsula each year, some strong enough to crack ice and topple rocks into rivers. Offshore, tsunamis surge across the Pacific. A mudslide, an eruption, or a swarm of tremors can reshape a valley or redirect a river overnight. At any moment, Kluchevskaya Sopka might cough a plume of ash high into the stratosphere, or lava might begin oozing silently from a fissure on Tolbachik's flank. The land seems to breathe and stretch as if it is restless, unwilling to solidify. Yet there is serenity amid the violence. Summer brings carpets of alpine flowers to the tundra, purple saxifrage, yellow poppies, cotton grass that sways in gentle breezes. Black sand beaches on the Pacific coast gleam wet under low sun, reflecting clouds and volcano peaks. Hot springs form turquoise pools in snowfields, steaming softly while flakes drift down. At night, when the sky clears, stars burn with such clarity that the Milky Way casts shadows. Auroras shimmer and dance, green and violet ribbons rippling above smoking craters. Silence extends so completely that you can hear the crack of ice settling and the distant roar of waterfalls. Kamchatka is a place of extremes that coexist rather than cancel each other. It is a land where fire meets ice, where fertile rivers slice through volcanic deserts, where life flourishes on the slopes of mountains that could explode at any moment. To travel here is to step into Earth's memory, into a landscape that offers glimpses of our planet's violent past and hints of its resilience. Explorers who come for glory often leave humbled, dwarfed by forces that do not recognize human ambition, and those who stay learn that respect is the only possible relationship with such a world. As we leave the peninsula behind and its mountains fade into cloud, the rumble of distant magma and the whisper of Arctic winds linger in the mind. Kamchatka does not ask to be tamed or understood. It simply exists, vast and indifferent, reminding us that there are still places where nature writes the only script.